Hey everybody, Black Ninja 797 here, and welcome back to another episode of Myth-Busting Mondays. Now, I just want to end up pointing out really quickly before the episode begins officially, I just want to say that this episode would not be possible today without the help of Nitwit, Glabersko, Dan, and Tyler. All those guys saved my ass this episode because a majority of my footage this week just happened to be corrupted, which really was a kick in the nuts. So they actually went out of their way and got their perspective of the myth and just sent it to me. And they even redid some of the myths on their own. So I just want to give a shout out really quickly to all the guys. So just please drop a thank you in the comments down below and give them all a shout out and a thing of appreciation. This episode was not possible without their help, so thank you guys. So I guess you could call today's episode Myth-Busting Monday Scuffed Edition. But anyway, now transitioning over to the final myth of today's episode, guys, is going to end up being, can you get the achievement Lickety Split by using just a gasoline can? It's a very creative one, and I think this is going to be a lot of fun to test at the end of the episode, so look forward to that. But anyways, guys, with all that being said at the very beginning of the episode, I hope you end up sitting back, relaxing, and enjoying another episode of Myth-Busting Mondays. Myth: if you're on fire in Left 4 Dead 2 and walk up next to a gas can, will the gas can catch fire? Alrighty guys, so for myth number 1, the myth is not only going to be submitted by Dan, but it is also going to be tested by Dan, so shout out to Dan. But yeah guys, the idea is that in Left 4 Dead, if you end up getting on fire, there is a brief delay before the fire is put out when you walk away from it. So with that little delay, is it enough that if you walk up next to a gasoline can, would it end up catching fire? So that's exactly what Dan's going to do here today. He's going to stand on the barrel and walk up to the can, and it looks like that it immediately caught fire, which means that the very first myth of today's episode is going to end up being confirmed. And now we move on to myth number 2. Myth: can you punch a sleeper mid-pounce and back for blood and save yourself? Okay guys, myth number 2 submitted by Glabersko and tested by Tyler. So Tyler's going to go up to a sleeper and just punch it and hope he gets lucky. Let's see what he can end up doing. Here comes the sleeper, and what do you know? Tyler was able to melee him. So it looks like myth 2 is confirmed. You can end up mailing a sleeper mid-pounce and save your life and back for blood. Myth: can the military truck on Blood Harvest run over special infected? Okay guys, myth number 3 is going to be submitted in by Tyler and recorded from the perspective of Dan. The results of this myth were strange, to say the least. We mostly had trouble trying to get the special infected to stay still. The spitter specifically also just did not want to stand still for whatever reason. So we ended up only getting everyone besides the spitter. But regardless of that fact, we were able to finally get a majority of the special infected to just stand still in one particular area, and then we just finally called in the military truck and just hoped for the best, because this myth was just kind of being a little bit problematic after a while. So what we're going to have happen is that Dan is going to end up calling in the military truck now, and Glabersko and Tyler are just going to monitor the special infected just to make sure that they're actually standing still for once. So here comes the truck. After he ran over Glabersko, he's going for the special infected next. And now you're going to see why I say that the myth has strange results. It only ends up killing the witches here. All the other special infected move over to the side and they just kind of warp out of the way. But the witches, since they sit and they can't move, they just get run over, which makes sense. But I'm surprised that even somebody like the Boomer did not get hit. So I think that this myth is going to end up being best left at plausible, just because it works for one of the special infected and then doesn't work with all of them. So it's not inherently busted, but it's not inherently confirmed. So I think plausible is a good place to leave it for now. Myth: can the zombies in Left 4 Dead 2 trigger the explosive barrels on the second chapter of Coldstream? Alrighty guys, myth number 4 is submitted in by RiseQB. Now meme lords, when I was originally testing this with the other guys, we did try other special infected. We tried the tank, we tried the smoker, we tried the hunter, we tried everything. But the main thing that gave us the best results was the boomer. Now, I wish that there was a little bit longer of gameplay that the guys sent my way, but they didn't want to send me gigantic files, so they cut it kind of short, but that is okay. So we're just going to show you guys the best results. So this is going to be Dan and Tyler spawning in boomers on top of the barrels with them surrounded by concrete so they cannot escape. And what you will notice is that when Dan's vision clears up and they shoot the boomers for you guys, you will notice something interesting here with this panic event. Because out of all the panic events that I've seen in Left 4 Dead, none of them have been triggered by outside things other than the player before. That is, until today. Because if you shoot a boomer at this explosive barrel, it will trigger it. So not only is the myth confirmed, but I believe to my knowledge, this is the only single panic event that is in the entire game so far that we have discovered that you can end up activating if you are not the player. which means that if you're playing in versus mode, if you were a boomer, you could hypothetically get yourself killed and activate this prematurely and mess up the survivors. That is cool. Now, meme lords, it's at this point in the video I would normally jump straight to the final myth, but since the footage was corrupted for majority of the myths here today, and I also didn't want to leave you with like a less than 8-minute episode, I decided to end up including one more extra myth and having a bonus 6th myth, therefore making it so that way the episode's just a little bit longer for you guys, despite the hiccups. So let's jump over to the bonus myth, and then we'll wrap up the video with the final one. Myth: can you kill a tank with just a single chainsaw? Alrighty guys, so for the bonus myth, this is going to be submitted in by Xrium. So the way that we're going to be doing this myth so that way we get the best results possible is have one idle tank and one single chainsaw being used here by Dan, and we're just going to be using the chainsaw until it either runs out of fuel or until the tank dies, because we do not want to end up having outside factors such as a bot shooting the tank messing up the numbers. So that way we can end up just seeing it just plain as day if the chainsaw is enough by itself to kill the tank. So here Dan goes, he's going to be using a chainsaw on an idle tank now, and let's see whether or not the chainsaw or the tank ends up giving out first. And it looks like the final result is going to end up being the tank dies first, which means the myth's confirmed. You can end up killing a single tank with a single chainsaw in Left 4 Dead 2. Alright everybody, and now it's final myth time, and once again the final myth is going to end up being, can you end up getting the achievement Lickety Split in Left 4 Dead 2 by only using a gas can? Let's test it and find out. Myth: can you get the achievement Lickety Split in Left 4 Dead 2 by only using a gas can? Alright guys, the final myth of today's episode is going to be submitted in by Star. And meme lords, I have wonderful news. This is the one myth on my hard drive that was not corrupted, which means I can end up showing you my perspective of this myth, which is awesome, because this myth is the final one and therefore it is the most important. So how do we go about testing this final myth? Well, the first thing that we had to do is that I had to load up a Smurf account because I already have Lickety Split on my main account, so we needed one that didn't even have Lickety Split in the first place. After logging into my Smurf, we ended up downloading a couple of the mods that we normally use for Mythbusting Monday, such as the admin menu, Rayman, and the team health counter, and then we ended up loading into a custom match and started spawning in smokers. Now the way that I approached this is I wanted to use the jerry can or the gas can in a multitude of different ways. I wanted to try to melee the tongue as it was coming at me, I wanted to try to shove the tongue as it was coming at me, I wanted to drop the gas can in front of the tongue as it was coming at me, just seeing if there was a couple different things that we could or could not do and see if the results were something that were in our favor. And I will say this, is that this achievement is not easy by any stretch of the imagination. It's really easy if you want to end up just using the chainsaw, but any melee weapon is going to end up being difficult, and it's especially difficult to try to stop the tongue using a jerry can, because you have to time it just perfectly. We even had slow motion on in the game at a point to make it at least a little bit easier, and even then it was still difficult, because when the tongue is coming at you in first person, you can't end up seeing really how close it is, just because it's just a bigger, pinker blob as it's getting closer to you, and it's kind of hard to just get the timing down. Speaking of timing, I would like to believe that the timing was the most critical factor in whether or not that we were going to even get a result out of this myth or not, because the smoker's tongue goes really quickly, even in slow motion, and without connecting with the tongue and just having it where we're missing constantly, really doesn't count as progress in my opinion, therefore making it not really fair to give a proper opinion on the myth. So that was very, very important for us to even remotely proceed. Now with that being said, here is footage of the one of only 2 times that I managed to stop the smoker's tongue from grabbing me with a jerry can. And as you guys can see, I did not get the Lickety Split achievement. So after several attempts of trying to block the smoker's tongue with a gas can and trying to end up getting the achievement Lickety Split, we have come to the conclusion that the final myth is going to end up being busted. You cannot get the achievement Lickety Split without using a sharp melee weapon like a sword or a machete or even a chainsaw. So if you're going to be going for Lickety Split, my best recommendation to you is to load up a custom map that allows you to get these achievements and just end up putting a chainsaw on with mods, and you can get Lickety Split that way, no problem. But in terms of this myth, it is once again busted. But yeah, guys, that's going to be it here for today's episode of Myth Busting Mondays. And I just once again want to give a final shout out to Nitwit, Glabursko, Dan, and Tyler, all for helping me out with today's episode. I couldn't have done without you guys, so thank you. And everyone that's watching, please give them a shout in the comment section down below because they definitely deserve the love. But I hope you guys end up enjoying the episode, everybody. And if you have a myth of your own that you would like to have be submitted in for next week, please put them in the comment section down below. I read everybody's comments. I really want to see what you guys have to say. If you guys end up enjoying the video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and all that beautiful stuff. And if you guys would like to financially support the channel, I just want to let you know you can end up supporting me on Patreon, which is linked down below in the description. Use my supporter creator code, which is my very first sponsor by Epic Games in the Fortnite and Epic Games item shops. And finally, you can also end up checking out my small business that I just created called Breakthrough Business, which is available at mastermind.com. And take a look at my very first course that I ended up creating called The Courageous Man Blueprint: How to Achieve Unbreakable Confidence for Young Men, which is going to be once again available in the description down below. But anyways, guys, with all that being said, I hope you ended up enjoying seeing another YouTube video from the most unique YouTubers we're ever going to see. Thank you for watching, guys. I love all of you, and peace out.
Hey, meme lords, Jesus here. And you better have enjoyed that video there by the eternal god Daddy Ninja. You should probably subscribe too, or the mighty Moab will come for your balls. If you enjoyed the video, you might like it too. And give me the memes. Flash, bang, boom!